Welcome, my friends. So glad you're here at the SightShift Podcast with me. And I am having a blast because this new format allows me to selfishly catch up with friends and introduce you to some of my favorite people. And I've got the man himself, John Weaver, in the house today. John, glad to have you here, buddy.
Hey, absolutely, man. Glad to be here. Glad to see your face. Glad to catch up.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So I remember a couple of years ago, we'd gone on a walk, and man, you made a big shift. So this is fun to me to show people, like, sometimes you persevere in the mission, sometimes you reinvent. So tell us about your before and after career-wise, what you were doing and what you're doing now, and we want to go on that ride with you.
Awesome. So when you and I first got together, when I first met you, when I first went through the SightShift program, I was practicing law. I was an attorney. I had, within the couple years before we got together, had sort of left my practice that I built right out of law school, which was doing like public defense work, appeals, juvenile work, stuff like that. And it started a firm with my good friend and former partner, Mark, where we were working with startups. So we had I was in the middle of a shift from, public defense trial work to helping people raise money, helping people get companies off the ground, trademarks, patents, all that good stuff. Well, not patents, but trademarks and other IP and stuff like that. And through that process, met my current business partner, Michael, and a couple years ago, or a year and a half ago, he finally got me to jump out of practicing law, leaving a firm that had my name on the end of it, to start a new investment and management firm with him, 22 Ventures. Been doing that for 19 months now, and it feels much longer. I think that's just because the joy of not waking up every morning and practicing law has been, fantastic. But it's been a pretty radical shift from sort of that B2B service provider space into the financial and investor space. And then we've also started a couple of businesses and had a couple businesses fail and had a couple shut down and things like that. So it's been awesome kind of switching sides from, working with entrepreneurs to really just being more of an investor and entrepreneur myself.
Dude, man, I love it. It's so many things, like the way you're throwing all that out. I'm like, I want to ask about that. What for you with that kind of shift has been really like surprising? Because I feel like you kind of hit the positives, like the reward of that. What's been surprising in a way you're like, man, this is harder than I thought, or more complex, or anything like that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I have struggled to adjust to is, and hopefully everyone out there who runs like a B2B services firm will nod their head at this, but when you're a service provider for businesses, you are, it's really easy to fall in this trap where like you're bending over backwards to meet people, to network, to do business development, right? Like if you, especially at a smaller shop where you're kind of wearing all the hats, BD is everything. Like your pipeline has got to be fat. It has got to be moving. You are always chasing new business. And so there's this sort of impulse of like, oh, you want to meet? Absolutely. When? Let's go. And I sort of abruptly kind of flipped, switches, right? Like I on December 31st, I was a lawyer. On January 1st, I was a venture capitalist, right? And so it took me a good year to sort of to realize like, hey, you can't say yes to every meeting, right? And I also had gone from like business development is not a natural strength of mine. Networking is not a strength of mine. I'm a big time introvert. I don't like big groups. I don't like going to events. I don't like going to parties. I don't like doing any of that stuff. And so it took me a long time to sort of put the hat on of like, you have to go out there. You have to get your name out there. You've got to meet people. People have to know what you're doing. And then all of a sudden, when you're on the investment side, everyone who is looking for money will find you. Yeah. And so all of a sudden it went from like, I was struggling to fill, my pipeline to the pipeline was like running over all over the place. I had an oil spill. And instead of trying to get better at, filtering and setting up systems and doing things like that, I was just saying yes to everything. And so we ended up in a situation where like I didn't have time to do really any of the stuff I was supposed to be doing because all I was doing was taking new meetings. And once we actually sat down and like looked through what our investment pipeline would look like, we realized like I could either do all the other stuff we had going on or I could source deals. But I couldn't do both in 40 hours a week. It just wouldn't have been possible. And so we actually ended up kind of making a shift I guess it was fall of last year. It was a year ago.
Who can measure time anymore with COVID anyways? I guess I don't know anything.
I know. Well, and when I do these, like, talking to you and like kind of doing this like retrospective, I'm like, oh my God, I haven't been doing this for 15 years. Like it's been a year and a half. So we made a shift where we were like, we're not going to source new deals. Like either things come to us and it's a warm referral from like a trusted source, or we're just going to say, hey, that sounds cool. I can forward this to someone who might be better suited for you, but we're not interested.
Yeah.
And like when you're trying to build a law firm or a marketing firm or anything where you're working with clients, like the idea of being like, no, I don't have time to meet with you. It was so that was a big leap. And it should not have taken me as long as it did to sort of figure that out. But I had a really hard time shifting out of that mindset of just like, yep, I'm here, I'm ready. I'll meet anyone, anywhere. That was really hard. And that was a struggle. And we definitely felt like there were a lot of things that we didn't do well that first year because I was so busy getting myself out of that mindset.
Yeah, man. I mean, you want to be helpful. You're a helpful person. And it's difficult when I get, requests, because I love meeting with entrepreneurs and visionaries and they're like, can we just meet for coffee and talk about this? Or of course, it's now something virtual. And I'm like, man, I want to say yes to those things, but my commitments to other people mean I have to be like really focused. And, and it's a great problem to have for sure. Better than
it's good to be wanted, right?
Yeah. It's better than the other. And each problem requires different approaches. And so good for you guys. So this to me would never come up in any other episode, and I've never told this story to you, I don't think. So this will be fun because the Michael that John mentioned for those listening is I can share because it would be public knowledge. Yeah. So it's Michael Redd, the NBA player, and John, I got to tell you, you're my guest on this podcast, and hey, just texted Michael, happy birthday, a few days ago, whenever he texted back. So I could ask him to be on the podcast, but I'm not. He can't be on the podcast, but you can be. Now, what's funny about this story to me is, he could be if he ever wants to go through figuring that shit out. But what's funny about the story is, so the first time I met him, he was with the guy that he did a lot of stuff with then, and probably still does, Danny. I won't say the whole name, just however. But, so I was meeting with Danny. Danny and I kept seeing each other, like at random places all over the city. And we had played basketball together somewhere. And so it was like, we should get together and like know each other. Mm-hmm. So we meet at one line in the Short North, and I'm hanging out with him. And he brings his partner, this super tall guy who can't fit at the table, who doesn't talk much. And I don't talk much to him. I mean, I'm a nice guy. I'm not going to be a jerk. But me and Danny are jamming. So they get up and leave. I'm meeting with a CEO who I coach them in their business afterward. And he's like, dude, because we have an athletic division, a championship must be awesome. And I'm like, why? He goes, dude, you were just meeting with Michael Redd. I was like, who? Because, while the guy who leads championship coached in the NBA, he knows the players. I don't. Yeah. And so, I'm a John Weaver fan. You tell Michael I said that. Too fun. What for you with this challenge of shifting and saying no to people in the current, like where you're at, gives you a clue about what might be the next challenge you face? What's on the horizon? You're a proactive person that you're like, okay, we got to get ready for this next shift also.
Yeah. I mean, I think, the cool thing about, I was in the venture space as an attorney, so I was doing fundraising deals, and you kind of get a cross section of like the general fundraising environment, the general market, of your, like what your clients are looking at, what they're seeing from investors and things like that. What I'm really fortunate to have right now is like, I have a much broader view of particularly the sports tech and sort of health and wellness tech spaces, because that's where we tend to operate. And so I get to see a lot of deals in those spaces, and sort of getting to see, over the last 6 months, there's been as I'm sure a lot of listeners understand and know, like there's been a huge macroeconomic shifts, right? We've had, even if all you do is follow kind of the public markets, the Dow, the S&P, stuff like that, like we've lost a lot of value there. There's a lot less capital in the markets right now, in the private markets too. And so what we sort of saw over the last 6 months was, I don't want to say like an increase in desperation, but the request went from like, hey, we are raising money, and if you want to participate, why don't you tell us what you can bring to the table, to, hey, we're kind of desperate, we're running out of money, like, can you help us now? And I'm grateful that we as a firm at 22 Ventures had sort of started saying no before the market got really tight, because the message, like the what we were seeing from founders and entrepreneurs was more, hey, we're going down, or hey, we're pivoting, or we need a bridge loan, we need something to get us through we're running out of cash, and we had already started saying no. So I didn't have to shift my mentality and my messaging and like the way I interacted with people during a time of crisis. I had sort of already done that. So for me, it's the challenge I see is, we're going through a market correction right now. We're going to come out on the backside of that, right? Things are going to stabilize. I think there's going to be companies that shouldn't have gotten money, they'll go under. Companies that did, there'll be some good companies that go down, bad companies that go down, whatever. We're going to come out of it, and there'll be a functioning venture capital market again, maybe later this year, maybe next year, maybe in a few years. And I already know that we're going to have to sort of relearn to say no again, because the messaging is going to change as there's more money out there, and it'll be more excitement, and that FOMO will start to kick back in, and it'll be like, no, we have to stay disciplined. Like we realized we couldn't do this right. Nothing has changed on our side on like what we can and can't do. So, we're in this period now where everybody's saying no. We're either in the short term or the medium term, or maybe even the long term, who knows? We're going to get back into a phase where everybody's saying yes again. And our instinct is going to be like, well, we can't miss out on this. Let's jump back in. And I already know, like, there's going to be hard conversations of like, we got to stay disciplined. We know our strengths, and this isn't one of them.
Dude, that's awesome, man. And that has to be a challenge, I would guess, for you, because when I think about the people that I've, walked through the deep journey with, taking them through Figure That Shift Out, get to know them. I mean, like some of my favorite moments stand out with some of our chats because of the philosophical jam sessions we had. Like, I remember there was a session where I was like, look, we're going to go way off track. We're just going to add one at the end because we're going to play here. So this idea of like being really disciplined because you're such a curious learner, I would imagine, has to be a challenge. What right now for you, wherever it takes you, like something personal you're learning, something, whatever, where is your curiosity on fire? Where are you like reading something cool, learning something cool?
Man. Well, let me start with I'm reading a 700-page book about the like the late 1960s, which is awesome. Strong recommend to anybody who likes history. It's called Nixon Land. It's really, really, really good. And I think has a lot of parallels sort of into what we're going through as a nation today, with the tumult of the late 60s versus sort of the tumultuous period we've been in for the last 5-6 years. But that's a whole nother, I mean, we could do 30 minutes probably just on that, but on the business side, we're actually, the timing on this is perfect. We actually had to shut down one of our wholly owned businesses that we operate. So we sort of have a venture capital and private equity portfolio where we've invested into things that other people are running in the day-to-day. Then we have a handful of businesses that we thought that we operate on the day to day. And so that's roughly speaking how our portfolio splits up. And, one of them, I had to have the call with our operations person today and say, hey, we're going to be shutting down. It's going to be quick. I've tried to negotiate soft landings for everybody. I've done my best. And I, me, I hate that, right? Like, I don't know. Well, I don't know that there's anyone who likes laying people off or doing those things. But the curiosity for me is, and this is sort of dates back to leaving Stansbury Weaver, to leaving my firm, is especially I think as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you're gonna have to do. We can swear, right? Swearing
yes,
cool?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not made for kids.
Okay. You got to be a really cool 10-year-old if you're listening to this. But I think, right, as leaders, it's really easy to be a leader when everything's great, right? Yeah. Like, oh, hey, the markets are up. We got more cash in the bank than we know what to do with. Let's throw parties. I'm an awesome CEO. Woo! Like, yeah, that's easy. Anybody off the street can do that. To me, like, being a true leader is, can you do a shitty thing as well as possible? Like, can you do the best job at a shitty thing? And I remember when I had decided to leave Stansbury Weaver, Mark and I went on a walk, and I said, hey man, here's this thing. I have to do it, right? This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I got to do it. I'm really sorry. I know it sucks and it's really shitty that I'm leaving you hanging. And I want to do the best job that I can. And a mentor of mine had given me that advice, like, get to it, be honest, be transparent, and like try to do it, do it in a way that like you can sleep at night. Yeah. And so again, I had another tough conversation this morning with our GM, and I sort of said, hey, this sucks. This is going to be bad for you. I'm going to have a job tomorrow or next week and you're not, and I'm sorry. I think part of me, the curiosity is, and the thing that I'm really trying to learn is like my natural instinct, coming from, a legal background is like, I'm always trying to convince people that my position is right. Like I'm professionally trained in doing that, as I explained to my wife.
Marriage counseling on the podcast for free.
Yeah. Don't ever say to your partner, listen, I'm professionally trained at convincing people. That's not going to go over well. So my instinct is always like, here's why I'm doing this, and here are the reasons why it's the right decision. And I know that it's bad for you, but you have to agree that this is the right decision. Like I had to learn a long time ago, like that's not, that ain't the right thing, right? Like that's how you end up sleeping on the couch. So, for me, it's like, even on this call, my instinct was like, oh, explain to them why. And I was like, no, just, this sucks. I'm really sorry. It has to be this way. And sort of accepting I'm never going to be the good guy in the story for this person. Never. Like I'm the person that decided to close the business, that decided to lay them off, and I don't get to be the good guy. And that as a conciliator, as a natural sort of like, I want to get people to agree. That's so hard for me. And so like leaning into that discomfort and sort of leaning into that, just, hey, this person's not going to say nice things about you, and they shouldn't. Like even if it's completely not your fault as a leader, like at the end of the day, your value or your role is to make those decisions. You make them, you got to own them. All you can do is do the best job you can in that situation. And no matter how good you are at laying people off, right? Like they're not going to be like, oh, love that guy. They're going to be like, you suck. And you do. And that's okay.
Bam. Dude, I love it. It's like we progress to this place as servant leaders, if we could use that phrase, where it's not about us. And what a lot of people want to do is make the situation about them. Like, look how this hurts me, and I'm so sorry. And
100%.
they drag the moment out because they make it about them. And now this is the worst thing ever in relationship to what we're talking about here. You talking about with your partner, Mark. But because I knew his personality, I knew it would give us a memory, and I knew he'd think it was hilarious. And so it was, a partner who was like the close friend through thick and thin, through turning something around, and we got it turned around, and it was time for me to move on. And we had gone to Cedar Point, and we're riding roller coasters and just having, a fun day, and we're first roller coaster, big one. We're ratcheting up the hill. I look at him and I'm like, dude, I gotta go. I can't do it anymore. I gotta move on to what's next. And then the ride kicks in and he's like, are you kidding? Wow. And honestly, it's like a rich memory that we have and super fun.
Oh,
and,
wow.
And I couldn't have done that if I was making that about me and how, I wanted to say it. It was the nature of what we've been through in our relationship. And so, now is a memory, but we have to have those moments. We have to evolve. And that evolution may mean we get to another deeper motivation for staying at the firm, or it may mean we turn the chapter, go to what's next.
Yeah, I'll never forget. I had a buddy, and he was at a pretty big, tech company. They were doing really well. Things were moving and shaking, and it was clear that his co-founder. So I think he was CEO. He was head of one of the divisions, and the CEO, they sold to private equity, and the CEO was going to get fired, or there were issues going on there. And I remember him saying, we were trying to process this issue and figure this out. And he said, I miss the days when we were in the foxhole together, when we were starting out. I don't want to lose that, relationship, that guy. And I remember looking at him and being like, you're never going to have that again. You're never going to have that again, right? Like, I think a big thing that you and I work through and something that we sort of, that you really helped me understand is like, you're always changing as an individual. Like we're never, from one second to the next, we are different. Change is inevitable. It is constant. Everything is right. Everything is impermanent. Mm-hmm. And so is this other person. And whether it's a spouse, whether it's a business partner, whether it's a whatever, like they're changing too. And so, to say like, I remember when we started this business and it was like this, and I just missed that person. Well, that person's gone, right? That person is a totally different person. A year, 5 years, a day, like just from moment to moment. And so are you. And that's not good or bad. That is just the way it is. And so, I think there's a lot of that when you have these hard decisions. It's like, I don't want to lose that relationship. I don't want that to change. And it's like, you have to accept that it's, even if you don't do this thing that you need to do, like that relationship's changing, it's going to change. Do it the best you can out of your love and respect for that person. And who knows what's next? Like we have this huge fear of the unknown that's after this thing you have to do, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like that, to me, that fear is so much worse than whatever the worst outcome is. And so you got to just knuckle down, do it the best you can, and who knows? And I went into that walk with Mark and I was like, this guy, he may be pissed and never want to talk to me again. And like, there's nothing I can do about that. I have to just do this in an authentic way that's true to who I am as a person and true to our relationship, and hope that our love and respect for each other brings us through that. And I think it did. Like, I think it's been much better for him having me out of there. It's been much better for me not being a lawyer anymore. And, do I miss the days where, it'd be 4:00 and I'd wander into his office and we would just, talk shit for 2 hours while our wives were both texting us, where the hell are you? I'm not putting these kids to bed by myself. Like absolutely. Those are some of my favorite memories. And, there was we sort of created this business model, which I could talk about for hours. We created this business model because we hated how law firms operated. And it was just this stupid thing that we came up with on a whiteboard one day. And it works. And he has taken it to the next level. And the firm is like just kicking ass. And like, it makes me really sad sometimes, right? To look at it and be like, God, I chose not to be a part of that. But I also know like that wouldn't have happened if I'd stayed, And so like, I have this thing that I'm super proud of. And I try to tell him this as much as I can. And Mark, if you listen to this, man, I'm crazy proud of what you've done and what this stupid idea that we came up with and gave a goofy name to, like that it works and that you guys are carrying it on. But you can't let the fear of that like keep you from doing the thing that sucks. Like you just got to do it and you come through it and, good, bad, who knows, you figure it out on the backside.
Yeah, man, that was super touching. I mean, I can't wait to share this with others and let them hear what your journey was like, what you were speaking into there. You had also referenced, something you had taken away from our work together, just because I know that the people that listen to this have been through so many of them, figured that shift out, or at least know it, and want to encourage them to keep doing the work. What for you? Because I mean, that was like 4, 5, 6 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
What for you still lingers from the work that we did, that you hold with you the most, or wherever your mind goes with that?
Man, this is my favorite part of any conversation that we have, is like the Chris McAllister appreciation thread, like, because it's, which I guess I apologize if that made it sound sort of like skeezy or whatever. Like this is all like from the heart. But so much of what we worked on, like there are so many things, and like you, like I have these vivid memories. The day in one line where we were just like, this one's a freebie, this one doesn't count. Like we're going deep on some philosophical stuff. There was a day we were at Goodale Park, and I remember we were sitting on a bench in the shade, day like today, beautiful out, sunshine, and just breaking down and really, really getting into some deep shit together. And I think that's the one that sticks with me the most, because we did this exercise of I think it was like, what are the people saying at your funeral? Was that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It has been 6 years. So I'm sure a lot of these memories are like, oh, that's not how it went down. But we were doing that, and I was talking about one of my sons. So I have twin boys they'll be 10 tomorrow, which, like, holy crap, right?
Yeah.
And talking about, and this is the thing that made me break down and will probably make me cry right now, but talking about wanting them to remember that I was patient with them, and sort of unpacking all that, and unpacking sort of like that is a thing that I fail at constantly, is losing my patience with my kids. And I'm always drawn back to that conversation, and that just understanding, like, that doesn't define you. That is a thing that, hey, I lost my temper today. That doesn't define, like, that's not who I am. That's the thing that happened to me. It was a way that I reacted to something, by in many cases proving, right? In many cases, like trying to show whoever is in the area that I'm a good dad by being stern with my kids. And that's just like, that is a thing that I take solace in basically every day, because I lose my temper with my kids almost every day. And if people who have multiple boys will certainly, hopefully, are nodding their heads going, yeah, I hear that. But like, just reminding myself of, hey, be aware that happened, but like, that doesn't define you. Like, you're not a bad dad or a bad person because you couldn't, maintain a Zen-like serenity throughout this, while they were biting each other, or yesterday when one was trying to break the other one's leg by stamping on it, right? Like, but just, I think back again to that, your actions, your thoughts, your reactions, like, they don't define you. And then also that, as we did that exercise and got deeply into sort of like, what do I value? Like, remembering like that it's that the way that the people will remember you, and like trying and striving towards that. I take those with me everywhere I go, in a lot of things of what I'm doing, but a lot of what I'm doing right now is trying to be a dad. And so that is the thing that, like, every single day I think back to that.
Thank you, man. It's so meaningful. And what's powerful is to hear this, like, the edges of learning that are happening professionally and personally, because that's, you can't separate the two. You're a human. We have both of these domains, and we want to advance in both of them. I feel like you've been so encouraging in your vulnerability, so encouraging in the way that you've shown how we can speak into other people's lives, speaking into Mark, even. What a cool moment. For leaders that are listening to this right now, where things are at, what's happening in the world. If you could get a message out to leaders to encourage them, what would that be? What would that message be? What would you like them to take away?
Man, I think my message to leaders right now is like, congratulations, because this is what you have been practicing for. This is what you have been learning for. To lead a team, an organization, a business, a family, to lead anything when things are hard, when things are scary, that is an opportunity to get better as a leader. It is an opportunity to get better as a human being. And like, I look at this time, and we're going through, crappy things now, where this is the time of change for us as an organization. And that is when you get to put all of these things that you are working on to test. That is, you have been working on your jump shot in practice for months, years, your whole life, and now it's game time. And like, congratulations to have that opportunity, because, I imagine there are leaders out there who never got to test these skills that they've built, this growth that they've done. And none of us are ever ready. So for those of you out there who are like, oh my gosh, I've been working, but I don't know that I'm ready to be a leader to be a wartime consigliere, to get through a crisis, to get through an economic downturn. And, we've got the queen is dead and all these things are happening. And, even I'll wake up sometimes and I pull up my phone and I'm looking at the headlines. I'm like, oh my God, like, what is going on? And then I get this moment to be like, this is great. Like, this is an opportunity to be somebody's rock, to look my team in the eyes and say, hey, this is uncertain times, but we're going to do our best. I'm going to be here for you. We're going to get through this. What an opportunity. So that's my encouragement to anybody out there who, like me, pulls up the balance sheet and goes, oh my God, what are we going to do? Hey, that's what we've been practicing for. And to have the opportunity to put your skills into use and to make an impact, that is a blessing.
Man, thank you. I hope everyone takes that to heart, spoken from your own experience of the front lines. And so I appreciate that. This has been such a treat. And I know you got tons going on. And so there may not be anything. If there was a way that people that wanted to connect with you, and you would be open to that connection or want to share something to point them to, is there anything like that?
I'm very fortunate to be in a position where I get to make myself hard to contact.
I would have assumed that.
Which to me is like the ultimate sign of success, is like, great, I get to be as unavailable as possible. But I think if for anyone listening to this, please don't message me if you're thinking you can backdoor your way into investment or something like that. But if you're, especially if you are a friend of Chris's or have gone through any of these programs, find me on LinkedIn, John Weaver, 22 Ventures is our company. I think like you, Chris, man, I could do this all day, like rapping about life and leadership and the journey. That's my jam, man. And, that's why I put that disclaimer on, because I know, today at the coffee shop, I ran into someone and they were talking about an investment opportunity. And I got super into it and was talking to him. And now I'm like, oh, he's going to email me later and be like, do you want to write a check? And I have to be like, no, I just was really curious and interested in what you were going through. So, with that disclaimer, if you're listening to this and you're, you want to talk about your journey or my journey, or you just want to, man, if you just want to spitball through a problem you're facing or a decision you got to make, I eat that up. And man, anyone who has done the work and gone through, worked with Chris, any of that stuff, I'm here for them. So Dude. They can just reach out and message me on LinkedIn, and can't promise I'll get back to you quickly, but
sure,
I'll do my best.
Very generous, very generous. And I think the people that listen to this podcast are people that have been through figure that shift out. Not even my parents, whatever. So what a man, this has been so fun. It's just flowed so smooth. Everyone lean in, take these lessons to heart, learn, get better. Don't beat yourself up. John, what a treat. Thank you, my friend.
Chris, thank you, brother.